Marcus Chun pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship. The Galactic Academy station hung in space like a giant silver flower. Its metal petals stretched out in perfect circles around a bright central hub. Each petal held classrooms, labs, and living spaces for thousands of students from across the galaxy. His hand shook a little as he watched the station grow larger. Marcus had dreamed of this moment for 3 years. He was the first human ever accepted into the advanced xenobiology program. The first person from Earth to study alien life forms at the most famous school in known space. The transport pilot, a green-skinned vegan with 4 arms, glanced back at him. "First time off-world, human?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. He pulled his sleeves down to cover the white scars that ran along his forearms. The pilot seemed nice enough, but Marcus had learned to hide his marks around strangers. "You picked a good school. Very peaceful here. Very safe." The pilot's large black eyes looked Marcus up and down. "Much different from your home world, I think." Marcus nodded. Earth was listed in the Galactic database as a Class 1-2, Deathworld. Most species couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. The air was too thick, the gravity too strong, the weather too violent, and the wildlife too aggressive. Marcus had grown up thinking this was normal. The docking process took 20 minutes. Marcus gathered his single bag and followed the pilot through the airlock. The station's air felt thin and sweet in his lungs. Everything was so clean, it made his eyes water. The floors were polished metal that reflected the soft blue lights in the ceiling. No dust, no dirt, no scratches anywhere. A small crowd of aliens had gathered to watch him arrive. Marcus tried not to stare back, but he couldn't help himself. He had seen pictures of other species, but never met any in person. There were tall, thin Altarians with skin like living crystal. Short, furry Centaurians with 6 legs. Blue-scaled Aquarians with fins instead of hair. They all looked so perfect and clean. They also looked afraid of him. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Chun?" A gentle voice spoke behind him. Marcus turned to see an Altarian woman approaching. She was about his height, which was short for her species. Her crystalline skin caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. She wore the long green robes of a professor. "Yes, ma'am. Dr. Veleth?" "That's correct. Welcome to Galactic Academy." She smiled, and her face lit up like a prism. "I'm sorry about the crowd. We don't get many Deathworld students here." "Actually, we don't get any." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Should I not have come?" "Oh no, please don't think that. You earned your place here. Your test scores were incredible. It's just that most species find Earth." She paused, looking for the right words. "Challenging." They walked through the main corridor together. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars and the blue-white sun of the Centauri system. Students moved in small groups, talking quietly. Their conversations stopped when they saw Marcus. He got words in different languages, but the universal translator in his ear turned them all into English. "Is that the Deathworlder? He's so short. Look at his skin color. So dark. Why does he keep his arms covered?" Dr. Veleth noticed his discomfort. "They're just curious. Most of them have never seen a human before. Give them time." She led him to a smaller corridor lined with doors. "These are the student quarters. Yours is at the end. I put you in a single room. I thought you might need some privacy while you adjust." The room was larger than his entire house back on Earth. A bed, a desk, a chair, and a wall screen for communications. A window looked out at the peaceful blue world of Centauri Prime below. No storms, no dangerous animals, no poisonous plants. Just endless green forests and blue oceans under perfect white clouds. "Classes start tomorrow," Dr. Veleth said. "Your first course is Advanced Xenobiology with Professor Dask. He's draconian, very traditional, but an excellent teacher. Then you have ecosystem analysis with me in the afternoon. After she left, Marcus sat on the bed and pulled up his sleeves. The scars on his arms told the story of his life on Earth. 3 parallel lines from a dropped bear that had fallen from a tree when he was 12. A jagged mark from a razor vine that had wrapped around his wrist during a camping trip. Small round spots where fire ants had bitten him while he slept in the desert. On his neck, mostly hidden by his collar, was the mark he was most proud of. A lightning snake had bitten him when he was 16. Most humans died from lightning snake venom in under 10 minutes. Marcus had walked 15 kilometers back to town and reached the hospital with 3 minutes to spare. The scar looked like a lightning bolt, purple and silver against his brown skin. His hands showed burn marks from grabbing hot rocks during the volcanic eruption near his hometown last year. He had helped pull 3 families from a collapsed building while the ground was still glowing red hot. The local news had called him a hero. His scars had earned him respect back home. Here, they made him a freak. Marcus looked out the window again. Tomorrow he would start classes with aliens who had never known hunger, never been hunted by predators, never had to fight for survival. They lived on worlds where the biggest danger was stepping on a flower. How could he possibly fit in? But he was here for a reason. Earth needed to understand alien biology. They needed to know what was out there in the galaxy, what threats and opportunities waited among the stars. Marcus was the first human to get this chance, but he wouldn't be the last if he did well. He unpacked his bag and pulled out a photo of his family. His parents stood in front of their small house, smiling despite the bandages on their arms from their latest adventure. His little sister held a baby dingo they had rescued from a flood. Behind them, the red rocks of the Australian outback stretched to the horizon under a burning orange sky dot. This was his world. This was where he came from. He wouldn't hide from that anymore. Marcus put the photo on his desk where everyone could see it. Tomorrow he would meet his classmates. He would show them that humans belonged here, scars and all. Marcus woke early the next morning. He had barely slept. The silence in his room felt wrong. Back home, there were always sounds at night. Wind through the rocks, insects calling to each other, the distant howl of dingoes. Here, everything was quiet except for the soft hum of the air recycling system. He put on his best clothes and made his way to the cafeteria. The food was strange but good. Fruits that grew in perfect shapes, vegetables that tasted like candy, meat that had been grown in labs instead of taken from animals. Everything was soft and easy to eat. Marcus missed the tough, chewy food from home that made his jaw muscles work at breakfast. He sat alone. Other students looked at him from across the room, but nobody came over to talk. Marcus understood. He was different, and different was scary to people who had never seen it before. The advanced xenobiology classroom was huge. Rows of seats faced a stage where holographic displays could show life forms from across the galaxy. Marcus chose a seat near the back and waited for class to begin. Students filed in slowly. Most were from species Marcus recognized from his studies. But when the door opened again, something enormous walked through. The creature was over 8 feet tall and covered in perfect silver scales that caught the light like mirrors. It moved with smooth, confident steps that made no sound on the floor. Its head was long and elegant, with bright yellow eyes and a mouth full of white teeth. This was a draconian, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. The draconian looked around the room until its eyes found Marcus. It smiled, showing those perfect teeth, and walked directly toward him. "You must be the human," it said in a deep, smooth voice. "I am Kazrik Vorthak. My family owns 3 systems in the Draconis sector." Other students turned to watch. Kazrik was clearly someone important. His scales were polished to a mirror shine. His clothes were made from expensive materials that shifted color in the light. Everything about him said wealth and power. "I'm Marcus Chun," Marcus replied, standing up to shake hands. Kazric was so tall that Marcus had to crane his neck to look at his face. "Chun. That's an Earth name, correct? From the Asian region?" Kazric's grip was strong, but not painful. "I've read about your world. Quite primitive. Tell me, what happened to your skin?" "My skin?" Marcus wasn't sure what he meant. "The discoloration. Those dark patches on your arms. Is it some kind of disease? Should I be concerned about infection?" Marcus realized Kazric was looking at his scars. From a distance, they probably did look like some kind of skin condition. "They're scars. From accidents when I was growing up." "Scars?" Kazric's voice got louder. Other students were definitely listening now. "You mean deliberate damage to your body? How unusual. On Draconis Prime, our medical technology prevents any permanent marking. We heal perfectly. We don't have that kind of technology on Earth," Marcus said quietly. "I see. So these marks are proof of your world's backward medical science. How embarrassing for you." Kazric sat down in the seat next to Marcus, even though there were many empty seats farther away. "Tell me, do all humans look so damaged?" Professor Dask entered before Marcus could answer. The professor was also draconian, but older and with darker scales. He began the lesson immediately, showing holographic images of different alien ecosystems. Marcus tried to focus on the lecture, but Kazric kept making quiet comments. "Look how perfect those crystal forests are. Nothing like the chaos on your world. See how those creatures live in harmony? No violence, no struggle. Civilized. I wonder if humans could even survive in a proper ecosystem. They seem built for destruction." The comments continued through the entire class. When the lesson ended, Marcus quickly gathered his things and headed for the door. But Kazric followed him into the corridor. "Chun, wait," Kazric called. Several other students gathered around them. "I'm curious about something. You mentioned accidents. What kind of accidents leave such dramatic markings?" Marcus felt his face get hot. "Just normal things that happen on Earth." "Normal?" Kazric laughed, and his followers laughed with him. "Getting injured is normal for your species? How tragic. Perhaps you could tell us about these normal injuries? For educational purposes, of course." "I don't think. Come now, don't be shy. We're all xenobiology students here. We want to learn about life on different worlds." Kazric's voice sounded friendly, but his eyes were cold. "For instance, that interesting mark on your neck. What normal accident caused that?" Marcus's hand went to his collar, making sure it covered the lightning snake scar. "I'd rather not talk about it." "Why? Are you ashamed of your world's primitive conditions?" Kazric leaned down so his face was close to Marcus's. "Are you ashamed of your own weakness?" "I'm not weak," Marcus said quietly. "No? Then why do you hide your scars? Why do you cover your arms?" Kazric reached out like he was going to pull up Marcus's sleeve. "Are there more marks you don't want us to see?" Marcus stepped back quickly. "Don't touch me. Or what? You'll get another scar to add to your collection?" Kazric's followers laughed again. "I'm beginning to understand why humans aren't usually allowed in civilized space. You're walking evidence of genetic damage." "That's enough," said a voice from behind them. Dr. Velith appeared, her crystalline face showing anger. "Mr. Vorthik, I suggest you return to your quarters." "Of course, Professor," Kazric said smoothly. "I was just having a friendly conversation with our new classmate, learning about his unique background." He turned back to Marcus. "We should talk more sometime, Chun. I have so many questions about Deathworld biology. Perhaps you could show me more of your interesting markings." Kazric walked away, followed by his group of admirers. Dr. Velith watched them go, then turned to Marcus. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Marcus lied. "Mr. Vorthik can be difficult. His family has always been very traditional. They believe in genetic purity and species separation. Don't let him discourage you." Marcus nodded, but inside he felt sick. It was going to be a long semester. Over the next few weeks, Kazrick's harassment got worse. He would make loud comments about human deformities during class. He convinced other students to avoid sitting near Marcus in the cafeteria. He started calling Marcus Scarface instead of using his real name. The worst part was that some of the other students began to believe Kazrick's lies. They started looking at Marcus like he really was diseased or damaged. They whispered when he walked by and moved away when he tried to join study groups. Marcus began eating alone in his room. He stopped raising his hand in class, even when he knew the answers. He started wearing long sleeves and high collars all the time, trying to hide every mark on his skin. But hiding only made Kazrick bolder. Marcus had been at the academy for 6 weeks when things got really bad. Kazrick's daily insults had become a routine that other students expected and even enjoyed. Every morning, in advanced xenobiology, Kazrick would make some comment about human primitives or genetic damage. Every afternoon in the cafeteria, he would loudly wonder if humans carried diseases that might spread to civilized species. Marcus tried to ignore it. He focused on his studies, which were going well. Dr. Vela said his essays showed insights that students from safer worlds could never have. His practical knowledge of survival and adaptation was already helping other professors understand hostile environments better, but Kazrick wouldn't let him alone. The breaking point came on a quiet evening in the observation deck. Marcus had gone there to study while watching the stars. The huge transparent dome gave a perfect view of space, and being there reminded him of lying on the red rocks back home, looking up at the same stars from billions of kilometers away. He was reading about symbiotic relationships between species when footsteps echoed across the metal floor. Marcus looked up to see Kazrick approaching with 5 other students following behind him. One of them was holding up a small recording device. Wow, the Deathworlder is hiding again, Kazrick said loudly. Always alone, always covering up those fascinating marks. Marcus closed his study pad and stood up. "I'm just trying to study." "Study what?" "How to pretend you belong here." Kazrick circled around him like a predator. "I've been thinking about you, Chun, about those scars you're so ashamed of." "I'm not ashamed of anything." "No? Then why do you hide them? Why do you run away every time someone asks about them?" Kazrick's voice was getting excited. "I think you're embarrassed because they prove what everyone already knows. Humans don't belong in civilized space." The students with Kazrick were recording everything. Marcus could see this would be shared across the entire station within hours. He thought about walking away, but something inside him snapped. "You want to see them?" Marcus asked quietly. Kazrick's yellow eyes lit up. "Oh, yes. I think we'd all like to see what kind of damage a primitive world does to its inhabitants." Marcus pulled off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. The scars on his arms were clearly visible under the bright lights. White lines, purple spots, and twisted patches of skin that had healed wrong without proper medical treatment. Kazrick leaned in close, examining the marks like a scientist studying a specimen. "Remarkable. These are from what kind of accidents?" "This one," Marcus pointed to 3 parallel lines, "is from a drop bear. They're marsupials that live in trees and drop onto prey." "You were attacked by wild animals?" One of Kazrick's friends sounded shocked. "This one is from a razor vine. The leaves have edges like knives." Marcus showed them a jagged scar on his wrist. Kazrick was getting more excited. "And you just accepted these injuries? You didn't seek proper medical treatment?" "The nearest hospital was 50 kilometers away. I walked there myself. Walked? Kazric laughed. Your world is so backwards you don't even have proper transportation. How deliciously primitive. Marcus unbuttoned his collar and showed them the lightning snake scar on his neck. This one almost killed me. Lightning snake venom shuts down your nervous system. I had 10 minutes to get help. And yet you survived, Kazric said, but his voice had changed. It sounded less mocking and more uncertain. How fortunate. It wasn't luck, Marcus said. I knew what to do. I slowed my heart rate to delay the poison. I knew which route to take to get help fastest. I knew how to keep moving even when my legs stopped working properly. The recording device was still running. Kazric noticed that his friends were looking at Marcus differently now. The scars weren't just ugly marks anymore. They were proof that Marcus had survived things that would kill most galactic citizens in minutes. Kazric needed to regain control. Well, I suppose when you live on a planet that tries to murder you daily, you learn a few tricks. But that doesn't make you strong, Chun. It makes you a victim of poor planning. If your species was intelligent, you would have left that death trap long ago. We did leave, Marcus said. But we came back. Earth is our home. How touching. Tell me, do you miss being constantly in danger? Do you miss wondering if each day will be your last? Kazric was waving his hands dramatically now, putting on a show for the cameras. I can't imagine choosing to live somewhere so hostile. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. You're right. You can't imagine it. Something in Marcus's tone made everyone quiet. You've never been in real danger, have you? Marcus continued. None of you have. You've lived your whole lives on worlds where the biggest threat is bad weather. You've never had to fight for food, never had to run from predators, never had to choose between safety and helping someone else. Kazric's scales bristled. We don't need to do those things because we're civilized. No, you don't need to do them because other people protect you. Your families, your governments, your technology. You've never had to protect yourselves. Are you suggesting that I'm weak? Kazric's voice was dangerous now. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm making you an offer. Marcus stepped closer to Kazric. Even with the height difference, something about Marcus's presence made the big draconian step back. Come to Earth with me. Just for one day. Walk through the same places I grew up. Show me how much stronger you are than a primitive human. The observation deck went silent, except for the soft hum of the life support systems. What? Kazric's voice cracked a little. You think I'm weak because I have scars. You think my world made me a victim. Prove it. Come to my home and show everyone how easy it is for a superior species to handle what humans call normal life. Kazric looked around at his friends. They were still recording. If he backed down now, it would be all over the station within hours. You're challenging me to visit a Deathworld? I'm offering you a chance to prove you're right about humans, Marcus said calmly. If I'm as weak as you say, if my scars really are just proof of stupidity, and someone like you should have no trouble spending one day where I lived for 19 years. This is ridiculous. Deathworlds are classified as off-limits for good reason. Only to tourists. Not to people with proper authorization. Marcus pulled up the Academy regulations on his study pad. Educational expeditions to hostile environments are allowed with proper supervision and medical support. Kazric was trapped. He had spent weeks calling Marcus weak and primitive in front of half the station. Now Marcus was offering him a chance to prove it, and everyone was watching. Fine, Kazric said finally. One day. But when you're treating my minor injuries from your pathetic world's feeble attempts to hurt me, I want a full apology in front of the entire Academy. And if you can't handle it? Marcus asked. Kazric's laugh sounded forced. Please, I'm twice your size and 10 times stronger. Whatever your little world throws at me, I'll handle it better than you ever could." Marcus nodded. "We'll see." As the group left the observation deck, Kazric was already making plans for his triumph. He would bring the best protective gear, the most advanced medical supplies, and a full recording crew. When he easily survived whatever Earth had to offer, it would prove once and for all that Draconians were superior to primitive humans. He had no idea what he had just agreed to do. The transport ship dropped them into the Australian outback at dawn. Red rocks stretched to the horizon under a burning orange sky. The air shimmered with heat, even though the sun had just risen. In a few hours, the temperature would climb to levels that could kill most aliens in minutes. Kazric stepped out of the ship wearing the most expensive protective suit money could buy. It regulated temperature, filtered air, and could stop projectiles from military weapons. He carried enough emergency supplies to survive on most worlds for a week. Behind him, a medical team set up base camp with enough equipment to treat any injury short of death. Marcus wore simple clothes and carried a water bottle. "This is it?" Kazric looked around at the barren landscape. "This is what you call dangerous? It's just rocks and empty space." Dr. Velith, who had insisted on supervising the expedition, checked her instruments. "The ambient temperature is already 42 degrees Celsius and rising. The atmosphere contains several toxic compounds. The UV radiation levels are extreme. Mr. Vorthik, are you certain you want to continue?" "Of course," Kazric said confidently. "I'm prepared for anything this primitive world can produce." Marcus started walking into the desert. "We'll follow the same route I used to take to school when I was 12. The first few hours seemed to prove Kazric right. They walked across empty terrain without seeing any life. Kazric's protective suit kept him comfortable while Marcus sweat in the growing heat. The Draconians started to relax, making comments about how overrated Deathworlds were. Then Marcus stopped walking and tilted his head to listen. "What is it?" Dr. Velith asked. "Drop bears," Marcus said calmly. "There are trees ahead." They crested a small hill and saw a grove of eucalyptus trees around a tiny water source. The trees looked normal enough, but Marcus approached them carefully, scanning the branches above. "I don't see any creatures," Kazric said. "Are you sure there are?" Something large and furry dropped from the tree directly above Kazric's head. Marcus moved faster than anyone thought possible, deflecting the 90-pound marsupial with his forearm and sending it rolling across the ground. The drop bear got up, snarled at them with teeth like daggers, and climbed back into the trees. Kazr, Ik stood frozen, staring at the place where a creature had tried to land on his head with enough force to break his neck. "They wait in trees for prey to pass underneath," Marcus explained, checking his arm where the bear's claws had scratched him. "The trick is to listen for the sound of their breathing and watch for movement in the leaves." "That thing tried to kill me," Kazric whispered. "No, it tried to eat you. Different motivation, same result." Marcus started walking again. "We need to keep moving." Drop bears hunt in groups. They continued through the grove with Kazric jumping in every sound. Marcus moved like he was taking a casual walk, casually pointing out which trees were safe and which ones hid predators. By the time they reached the other side, Kazric was shaking inside his protective suit. "How did you learn to do that?" Dr. Velith asked. "Practice," Marcus said. "You don't survive childhood on Earth without learning to read the environment." The sun was getting higher, and the heat was becoming dangerous even with protection. They took shelter under an outcropping of rocks while the medical team checked everyone's vital signs. Kazric's suit was working perfectly, but his heart rate was elevated and his hands were trembling. "This is just the beginning," Marcus said, drinking from his water bottle. "We haven't even reached the interesting parts yet." When the worst of the day's heat passed, they continued toward a river that cut through the red landscape. The water looked cool and inviting after hours in the desert heat. Kazric was ready to refill his water supplies. "Wait," Marcus said, holding up a hand. He picked up a small rock and threw it into the water near the bank. The river exploded. Something huge and green lunged out of the water, snapping massive jaws at where the rock had landed. A 12-foot crocodile slid back under the surface, leaving only ripples to show it had been there. "Saltwater crocodiles," Marcus explained. "They can hold their breath for an hour and attack anything that comes near the water. How are we supposed to cross?" Kazric's voice was getting higher, very carefully. Marcus studied the water for several minutes, watching for movement patterns. Then he waded in slowly, moving in a specific rhythm that somehow didn't attract the predator's attention. "The key is to move like you belong here," he called back. "Don't splash, don't move too fast, and never look directly at them. They can sense fear." Kazric followed, his expensive suit protecting him from the water, but not from the terror of knowing that death was swimming just meters away. Halfway across, something bumped against his leg, and he screamed. "Stay calm," Marcus said quietly. "It's just testing you. If you panic, it will attack." The longest 10 minutes of Kazric's life passed before they reached the other bank. He collapsed on the shore, gasping for breath inside his protective suit. "You do this regularly?" Dr. Veleth asked Marcus in amazement. "There's no other way to reach the good hunting areas," Marcus replied. "You learn to work with the environment instead of fighting it." As evening approached, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The medical team wanted to call for extraction, but Marcus shook his head. "The storm will pass over us either way. Better to find shelter and wait it out." He led them to what looked like solid rock, but turned out to be the entrance to a cave system. As they moved deeper underground, the sounds of Earth's night hunters began echoing from the darkness around them. Kazric's suit had night vision, but it only made things worse. He could see glowing eyes reflecting back from the shadows. Something howled in the distance. Something else answered from a different direction. Claws scraped against stone somewhere in the darkness. "What are all those sounds?" he whispered. "Night shift," Marcus said. "Different predators come out after dark. Dingoes, feral cats, wombats, echidnas. Most of them won't bother us if we don't threaten them." "Most of them?" Thunder crashed outside the cave as the storm arrived. Rain poured down like a waterfall, and lightning lit up the sky every few seconds. The sound echoed through the cave system like the world was ending. Kazric sat in a corner, surrounded by the most advanced protective technology in the galaxy, and realized he was more afraid than he had ever been in his life. Every shadow might hide a predator. Every sound might be something hunting him. Even with all his equipment, all his advantages, he felt completely helpless. Marcus sat nearby, apparently relaxed, occasionally calling out to the animals in the darkness. Sometimes they called back. It was like he was having conversations with creatures that would kill Kazric without hesitation. "How?" Kazric finally asked. "How do you live like this?" Marcus looked at him in the dim light of their emergency lamp. "Like what?" "Knowing that everything around you wants to kill you. Knowing that any moment could be your last. How do you function?" "Everything doesn't want to kill me," Marcus said. "Most things just want to survive, same as I do. The trick is learning their rules and respecting them." "But the constant danger? What constant danger?" Marcus seemed genuinely confused. "I know how to read the signs. I know which creatures are actually threats and which ones are just protecting themselves. I know how to move, how to act, how to avoid trouble. This is just normal life." Kazric stared at him. Normal life. For Marcus, navigating deadly predators and surviving in impossible conditions was just another day. The scars on his body weren't marks of weakness or stupidity. They were proof that he had learned to thrive in a world that would kill Kazric 100 times over. As the storm raged outside, Kazric began to understand what strength really meant. It wasn't size or advanced technology or perfect scales. It was the ability to face the impossible and keep going. It was the knowledge that came from surviving things that should have killed you. Marcus had that knowledge. Kazric realized he had none. When dawn came, they emerged from the caves to find the storm had passed. The transport team was already waiting to take them back to the academy. Kazric walked to the ship in complete silence, his perfect protective suit unmarked by their journey. But inside that suit, Kazric was a changed being. He had spent one day in Marcus's world and learned the difference between being protected and being strong. For the first time in his life, he understood what courage actually meant, and he knew he didn't have it. The Academy's main auditorium had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled with students from dozens of different species, all waiting to hear what had happened on Earth. Word of Kazric's expedition had spread across the entire station, and everyone wanted to know if the proud draconian noble had proven humans were weak. Marcus and Kazric sat on the stage with Dr. Velith between them. The recordings from their day on Earth were ready to play, but first Kazric had asked to speak. The big draconian stood up slowly. His perfect scales still gleamed under the lights, but something fundamental had changed about him. He moved differently now, less confident, more careful. When he looked out at the audience, his yellow eyes no longer held the arrogant certainty they had before. "I came here today expecting to prove something," Kazric began, his voice quieter than usual. "I believed that my size and strength made me superior to humans. I thought Marcus Chen was weak because he carried scars from his home world." The audience listened in complete silence. "I was wrong." The words seemed to hurt him to say. "I spent one day on Earth, protected by the most advanced technology my family could buy, surrounded by medical teams and emergency equipment. I was safer than Marcus has ever been in his entire life." Kazric turned to look at Marcus. "And I was terrified every moment we were there." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not what anyone had expected to hear. Marcus Chun walked through that environment like he was taking a casual stroll through a garden. He read dangers I couldn't see, avoided threats I never noticed, and protected me from creatures that would have killed me before I even knew they were there. Kazric's voice was getting stronger now, more certain. "I realized something important that day. Strength isn't about having perfect skin or advanced technology or family wealth. Real strength is about facing the impossible and surviving it. Real strength is about protecting others even when you're in danger yourself." He looked directly at Marcus. "I owe you an apology, not just for my words, but for my ignorance. You are not weak. You are the strongest person I have ever met." The auditorium erupted in discussion, but Kazric held up a hand for silence. "I want everyone to see what really happened on Earth. Not so you can judge me for my fear, but so you can understand what real courage looks like." The lights dimmed and the recordings began to play. The audience watched in fascination as Marcus calmly deflected a drop bear, navigated crocodile-infested water, and led them safely through dangers that would have killed most galactic citizens in minutes. They saw Kazric, supposedly superior in every way, depending completely on Marcus for survival. When the recordings ended, the auditorium was silent again. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. Dr. Velith was the first, followed by Professor Dask, then students throughout the crowd. The applause grew until everyone was on their feet, looking at Marcus with newfound respect. Marcus stood up, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "I don't need applause. I just wanted people to understand that being different doesn't mean being inferior." Over the following weeks, everything changed for Marcus at the academy. Students who had avoided him before now sought him out, asking questions about survival, adaptation, and environmental challenges. His insights about hostile ecosystems made him popular with professors who had spent their careers studying such places from safe distances. Kazarek became Marcus's closest ally. The proud Draconian used his family's influence to support human applications to the Academy. He spoke openly about his experience on Earth, encouraging other students to challenge their assumptions about strength and superiority. Before I met Marcus, Kazarek told a group of first-year students, "I thought courage meant never being afraid. Now I know that real courage is being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." Dr. Veleth offered Marcus a research position studying extreme environment adaptation. But Marcus had a different proposal. "I want to start an exchange program," he told the Academy administration. "Students from Garden Worlds should have the chance to experience controlled challenges, and students from Deathworlds should learn about peaceful environments. We need to understand each other better." The program started small. Marcus designed carefully controlled expeditions to mildly hostile environments, teaching alien students basic survival skills while showing them the beauty of worlds that seemed dangerous. Meanwhile, Deathworld students visited peaceful planets to learn about cooperation and nonviolent problem-solving. Kazarek was the first volunteer for the program. He spent a month on a human colony world, learning to appreciate both the challenges and rewards of life on a planet that demanded constant vigilance. When he returned, he had earned a small scar on his hand from helping to rescue trapped miners after an earthquake. "It's not much," he told Marcus, showing off the mark proudly. "But it's mine. I earned it." Marcus's reputation spread beyond the Academy. Other institutions began inviting him to lecture about survival strategies and environmental adaptation. His scars, once sources of shame, became teaching tools as he explained how different species adapted to hostile conditions. But the real change was in how humans were viewed across the galaxy. The recordings of Marcus on Earth became required viewing in xenobiology programs everywhere. Suddenly, Deathworld species weren't seen as primitive or damaged. They were recognized as incredibly tough and resourceful. Human applications to galactic institutions increased dramatically. Other Deathworld species also found new opportunities as the galaxy began to appreciate what could be learned from those who had survived the impossible. On a quiet evening 6 months later, Marcus sat in the observation deck where this had all begun. He was no longer alone. Kazarek sat beside him, along with students from a dozen different species, all working together on a research project about cooperative survival strategies. "Do you ever regret coming here?" Kazarek asked quietly. Marcus looked around at his friends, then out at the stars. "No, this is where I belong. All of us belong here, even with all the initial prejudice and fear. Especially because of that," Marcus smiled. "Fear usually comes from not understanding something. Once people understand, they stop being afraid and start being curious." A young Centauran student looked up from her research. "Marcus, can you tell us again about lightning snakes?" "I'm writing a paper on electrical adaptation in hostile environments." Marcus laughed and pulled down his collar to show the distinctive scar on his neck. "Wow, they're not actually made of lightning." As he began explaining the biology and behavior of one of Earth's most dangerous predators, his audience listened with fascination instead of disgust. The marks on his skin weren't shameful secrets anymore. They were proof of knowledge that couldn't be learned from any textbook. Kazarek watched his friend teach and felt proud of how much they had both changed. He had learned that true strength came from facing your fears and growing from the experience. Marcus had learned that his differences made him valuable, not broken dot in the end. They had both discovered that the galaxy was big enough for everyone, scars and all. The Academy's new motto, suggested by Marcus and approved unanimously, was carved into the wall above the main entrance: "Strength through understanding." Below it, in smaller letters, was a quote that had become famous across the galaxy. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What does kill you teaches everyone else what to avoid. Marcus Chun, the scared young man who had arrived at the academy, hiding his scars, had become a teacher, a leader, and a bridge between worlds. His story proved that sometimes the best way to show strength is not to hide your wounds, but to explain how you survived getting them dot, and in a galaxy full of perfect, unmarked beings who had never known hardship. That lesson was more valuable than all the advanced technology in the universe.